Hi everyone. Hopefully you can hear my cat. She's being very cuddly today. Let me set up a few things here, and then I can definitely get into some stuffs. We'll try this one. Okay. So today is a Final Fantasy TCG deck build day. And I wanted to make sure that I kind of kept this somewhat cheap in regards to cost and everything. So we'll see how that goes. Sorry, I'm very unfamiliar with this music that I totally pulled up, but it's Final Fantasy X remixes, so hopefully it's working. So, after discussion with this new player, he wanted to get a Mono Earth deck build that kind of helped him ease into the element. He played my competitive Mono Earth build at a local and really enjoyed it, but couldn't fully understand like all the mechanics that were in there. So I kind of told him there's a lot of introductory builds that can work and that are probably recommended. One of those, which was one that I started with, which was a Final Fantasy X Mono Earth. It focuses on a trio of LeBlanc, Logos, and Ormi, and then also uses Kamari for his Ronso Rage ability, which is a lot of fun. I unfortunately kind of fell out of the deck simply because a lot of our local meta was not playing special abilities anymore. So Kamari's special ability slowly became less and less useful. Oh, come on, you. There we go. So this is the Kamari in question. So his special ability is, pitch a Kamari and then 2 Earth CP, and I get to choose a forward that my opponent controls and gain its special ability until the end of turn, and also I'm able to use that special ability without paying cost once. A lot of fun. I had so many entertaining plays with this card alone that it was fantastic. So we're going to focus on making a deck with Kamari, but also, oh, that's right. Sorry, the back button doesn't work in full screen Chrome, because it's a window, that's why. Let's see. But the LeBlanc trio that I'm talking about, let's actually do this. So the LeBlanc trio that I'm talking about focuses on these 3 dudes. So LeBlanc's kind of the main gal of the trio, but she has Natural Brave, which a lot of people I think are discrediting these days. It's very handy to have a forward have Natural Brave without needing support from Wool or Momodi. I found LeBlanc having that Brave insanely handy, and in my Mono Earth deck today, I play Guy over Yang for that fact alone. The fact that he has non-conditional Brave is very helpful. So, yeah. And then obviously we have another option of Gipple, which is a strong card when he comes in. I, unfortunately, when I played him, didn't see too much use, simply because there wasn't haste along with Gipple. But he did boost everyone else, which could be pretty handy. But probably the most entertaining things about this build is that in ideal board state, which is sometimes very achievable in this case, you have the trio out of LeBlanc, Logos, and Ormi, who are all boosting each other. LeBlanc is, when the entire trio is out, is at 12k. Logos is at 9k, and Ormi is at 7. It puts everybody above curve, which is fantastic. They're on curve naturally, but being able to kind of boost them up higher when one of their homies are out is very, very helpful. But think about our other boosters in the deck. We have Ingus, who can boost all Earth Forwards by 1,000, and we also have a Crow, which can sit on your back row and boost everybody by 1,000. So that LeBlanc could turn into a 14k, Logos 11, and Ormi 9. Like, the board state that you can get with this is crazy, crazy good. So, and Ormi is kind of nice in today's meta. After evaluation of Opus 6, I, in my current Mono Earth build, don't have anything that can protect against Paul. Ormi can naturally do that unboosted because he's able to block the unblockable effect, and he wins the power exchange unless Paul's boosted somehow. So that's kind of a nice little addition to this. You need to have stuff that's going to help you in the current meta. So when I initially started, I actually got the idea after fighting Opus 2 Warrior of Light. I'm going to need to reset my filters here. This guy. I had just played in a local, and this guy's always been a pain in the rear, and he still is. He is very difficult to deal with. You essentially have to break him or overpower him. But the idea was, I get Kamari out, I have Ingus and Inacrow out, and then I Ronso Rage his ability. Because it would the Ronso Rage ability would happen at 10k, and thus get around Warrior of Light's reduction of damage done to it by 2k. Other options, of course, are just straight breaking it, or, you know, etc., etc. But it was kind of interesting how this kind of inspired the deck that ended up working quite well for me. So when I started on this process, I actually found a deck online that apparently did pretty well. And they called it Settle Down Kamari. I used this as a template when I first built my stuff, because as you can see, it runs, you know, the Logos, the Ormi, and it runs 2 LeBlanc. But it also runs some other stuff in there that makes it super good, like, you know, the Shantoto is obviously a powerful force. You know, our Kamaris are in there as a kind of a main focus of the deck. But we also have our Gippals, Dataluma, of course, being a strong card in general. It's also got the Scarmiglione for the back attack stuff. I never poked around with that. I actually ended up cutting it out of my list when I started. So we'll poke around with what we've got here and kind of play off of that. So let's just hop into Deck Editor. We'll start from scratch, and we'll put in all the tech that we think is good. And then we'll kind of hone it down from there. So we obviously want to start with what we want the focus of the deck to be, which is a Mono Earth 10 build. Let's go ahead and throw 3 of each on the forwards. And then since I was aiming to get Kamari shots off, I put at least 2 of the Kamari backup. He's not meant to see play ever. You want to have him available for either CP pitching or for the sake of Kamari's special ability, the Ronso Rage. So, and obviously this being the only other version of the card right now, we want to make sure that we have fuel for that Ronso Rage. Coming Opus 7, we actually do get a new version of Kamari, but still kind of on the fence which one I'd prefer to run, because I really, really, really like this card. So we'll throw Gimpel in there just for now. I might personally take it out, but we'll see what ends up happening. So let's look at forwards first. I won't do what I did last time, where I did it by Opus, because oh my god, that took forever. But let's start from the basics back in Opus 1, and we'll kind of work our way up to kind of see what is going to help in this deck. We obviously have some straight, or like kind of very straightforward options that can definitely help. Later in the opuses, like Yang, but there's obviously the idea of using Guy as well. Guy is an incredible anti-ice card that should definitely be considered in deck lists, but Yang from Opus 5 also has a similar ability and is technically bigger. Let's see if I can find Yang. Where are you at, boy? Yang. Yang? No, not that one. Yo, where's my boy? There he is. Whoops. Yang has a similar ability, but he relies on your board state to determine if he has Brave. My apologies. Oh, cat was messing with something. Alright. So, we'll kind of determine which one is going to fit for the deck better. I obviously have preference towards Guy, but we'll see if Yang finds a place here. So, Dark Knight's kind of always fun, because for the more damage that you take, the bigger this guy gets. And him being a 2-cost, it's okay. The only downside is he starts off incredibly low. 3k, meaning in order to make him on curve, quote-unquote, you have to at least have 2 points of damage. So he's not a very strong pick, and there's actually some other Dark Knights that have a similar mechanic that might end up having preference here. Vanille actually saw some play in Nats, apparently. This card has incredible lasting power. The only downside is you consume your Hecaton chairs in order for that lasting power, and unfortunately the Hecaton chairs are very important to some tech, so I don't like to take them out, but she's really good for that lasting power, so certainly something to consider, but I'm going to skip over it for now. This Vincent probably never sees play, or at least I haven't seen it see play. The Berserk Dance is really kind of but the First Strike 9k is always kind of nice. First Strike being somewhat rare in Earth, and a lot of versions of Vincent actually do have that First Strike. So, and I guess the only downside is it's only when attacking, not when defending. So, powerful card, but I think we got some better options. Mystic is one that kind of helps with sticky backups and getting those off your back row, but I don't know if we're gonna have that issue right now. So we're gonna skip over that. I do want to throw at least 2 guys in right now. We'll kind of come back to that and see if we want to keep those or not. I wasn't really big on this Gabranth. There's actually one that we're gonna come to that I liked better in just application, because it's such a nice turnaround card, and it can really help in that sense. Let's see. This Cecil is one to not put away immediately. It's on curve, and for every point of damage that you take, you get to deal something 5,000 damage. So that can be kind of helpful against certain matchups. So I know I originally splashed it into mine as an anti-Chocobo tech, because this deck, Earth is kind of a slower element, so it struggles against aggro. And when I was playing Mono Earth, which I might be bringing back, aggro decks just ran rampant in our locals. A lot of people were playing Chocobos. So I just needed something to kind of help with it. And a lot of people suggested this card. It didn't really end up helping much, though, simply because of the boosting thingamajig that the Chocobos get after they party attack. So it unfortunately didn't do what we were hoping for. So we're going to skip over that one for now. For the love of God, do not play this card. Do not play this card, because you benefit your opponent way too often. I originally started with a Fire Earth build, and I had pulled into this card, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I get to revive something back to my hand. That's great. I mean, yeah, my opponent does, but the problem with that is you let your opponent revive something that was insanely important that you may have just taken out. So don't do it. This, unfortunately, is not very good. And especially with the EX Burst, there's a chance for you to activate that accidentally, and that's just not something you want. This Deleted is good, but I don't think it's going to be good in this this list. 3-drop 9k is fantastic, but you have to sacrifice a character in order to resolve her effect. So there's probably ways that you can cheese it, where you pick a dude who can't be broken. But we don't have those guys in our list right now. So I'm not sure, but 3-drop 9K is obviously fantastic. So I actually kind of like the sound of this Delita, and I think I splashed it into my list. I still got to playtest it, but it can swing at a 2-drop on curve, but it can block at a 3-drop on curve. Obviously trading. So that's kind of interesting. And obviously, if you end up getting your boosters out, Ingus and a Crow, you can increase this dude to be an on-curve 3-drop. So, I'm sorry, technically above curve, and then also block a on-curve 5-drop. So it's really interesting what this Delita does. We obviously don't see it in play very often, but it's a cheap backup that can definitely help. I'm going to go ahead and splash 2 in. It might end up getting cut for some other tech, but we'll see. The Barretts I don't think are going to work here. Prish is a certain focus, so we're not going to worry about that. Vincent's, nah. Here's another one of those Dark Knights we were talking about. In order for him to be on curve, you have to take 3 points of damage. So not really big on this dude. Can be powerful, but I'm not big on him. Like, they just start too low, and unfortunately the only one that doesn't start low with this mechanic is 6-drop Gabranth, who starts at 8. So obviously when you take just 2 points of damage, he's at 10k, and that's fantastic. But, these Dark Knights unfortunately just are kind of eh. The Mannequin, kind of similar situation. We got a 3-drop 5k, so it starts under curve. In order to get on curve, you need 2 points of damage. But also, if you're on your last ropes, this Mannequin blows itself up. Like, what? How is that useful to you? And honestly, that keeps reactivating, regardless if you think you can protect it or not. So that's not worth the upkeep at all in this situation. I really kind of enjoy this Vanille as a one-of. You obviously don't play it very often because of its high cost, but the fact it can tutor a cost 4 or less, and currently everything in our list is cost 4 or less. So if I can free play a LeBlanc, for example, off of Vanille's effect, that's great. Like, I'm not focusing on the tech, but having that one-of shot to be able to kind of board flood a little bit is great. It's just a fun thing to have. The Vincent's always good. He protects himself against break effects, and his death penalty ability is really good. I think it kind of takes away from the deck focus right now, so I don't want to splash him in just yet. And we'll try to see what other tech we can get in before trying to just throw in a really kind of a money card, because unfortunately he is kind of up there in cost. We do kind of want to keep this cheap for that new player, just to make sure that we're not, really hurting his wallet trying to play an element that he is interested in. So let me see here. This is the Gabranth that I really, really like. I honestly play it as one of, maybe a 2 of, because he is such a nice comeback card. He's always going to be 9k, unless you had the boosters, but he becomes cheaper for every point of damage, which can be really important. You just need 3 or 4 points of damage to make this guy really efficient, because, say for example, you have 3 points of damage. You're okay taking those points, it's whatever. This guy is now a 4-drop 9k, which puts him above curve. And even if you had that 4th point of damage, it would make him 3 CP to get this 9k out on the board. And if you're on your last ropes, it gives all of your Earth forwards Brave. And obviously that's really strong in a mono Earth build, because all your dudes are Earth. Giving them Brave allows them to attack and defend. So really, really strong option. I'm going to go ahead and splash it in as a one-of tech because I really enjoy the card. And I know it's cheap. So, let's see. Begammon is another card that I really, really enjoyed. Also a really cheap card. Your opponent has to block Begammon. Has to block Begammon. And what's kind of fun with that is if Begammon, or however you pronounce this dude, if he party attacks with someone, that party attack has to be blocked. And it's up to your opponent to decide, well, do I want to kill the guy who's going to keep doing this force block stuff, or do you want to kill the dude who's going to be much more of a problem? because obviously you're only going to party attack if you can overcome a situation or needed to do that in a power sense. Sometimes you might do it just to be like, I want to get this dude off the field, and I think I've done that a few times where it's like I swung with LeBlanc, who totally could have killed this thing, but because my opponent had the option to either take the point of damage or block with it, I was like, nah, man, I want that stuff off the board. I'm going to force a block right now, and you can decide if you want to break the Begammon or not. So he's actually a lot of fun. I'm going to splash a 2-of tech in there for now, and we'll kind of see where that goes. The other versions of Yang really kind of focus on monks and stuff, so it's really kind of going to detract from what we're doing here. And that also includes the Ursula Yang combo, which a lot of folks will recommend. The Ursula Yang combo is really kind of nice because for 4 CP, you can free play Ursula off of that, and also you have 2 9Ks on the board. The Yang that does that is here. So if you have Ursula, Yang gets 1K in Brave, and then when Yang enters the field, you get to free play that Ursula, and there's only one version of Ursula, and it's 2-drop. So technically, this one's very good because you block against your Pauls, and you just hit the board with 2 9-drops that your opponent has to answer to. So this is a very strong combo, but I think it's going to clog our list here. So we're going to try to maybe lean away from that. The Rydia is kind of nice, because obviously we have a Mono Earth build, so they're not going to take damage from Gaia's Wrath. And dealing 7k across the board is very powerful. I never found a place for this, though, because I didn't run enough summons to make Rydia very useful. Very excellent card, but you have to run a lot of summons to see much use out of her. So we're going to come back to that and see what kind of summons we end up putting in this list. Kind of skipping over some of these because they're not really going to work well. I really do enjoy this card. I wish it was a 4-drop because it's a very nice defensive card or offensive card, to be honest. The fact that it can block at 8k and then decide if it wants to go ahead and tap itself to make it a 10k is really, really kind of nice. Or it can do the same on attack because it has the natural Brave. I'm going to go ahead and put it in as 1-of tech and see if I can get the player to kind of poke around with it and see how he thinks of it, because we really don't see it in play. He totally played with this Delita on my list, and I know he really, really enjoyed the card. I only have a 1-of because I only own 1 Delita, and I put it in as an anti-something, and I forget what it was, but we'll go ahead and splash a 1-of tech and decide what 1-of techs are going to stick around in this list. I know that's a money card, so that's going to kind of maybe hinder it a little bit, but honestly, this is just a template. The player's going to determine for sure what he wants to end up running. This guy has to attack if possible, and he doesn't have a high enough attack to really make that worth. Brandalus is bad, personally. 5-drop 6k. Who only becomes an 8k if the other dudes are on the board. That's kind of whack. Let's see. Dataluma is a good card. He is, however, I think gone up in price as of late. I want to say... excuse me. I want to say he increased to like 7... It's either 7 or $2. It really kind of fluctuates with him. But obviously a really, really good card, and I think this is the card that I ended up running as the anti-Chocobo tech, because if I needed him to block, I could swing back at 12k, and that could get a really annoying, like the Final Fantasy VII Chocobo off the field, which could make all the difference. So Dataluma is always a really good card to consider. I don't know if the player got a chance to really utilize this guy, because I think he mentioned it either hit damage or he just had to pitch it for other tech that he was trying to go for. I'm going to go ahead and put it at 2, because we know Dataluma's good. He is kind of meta, which if you know me, I'm not too keen on meta stuff, but it's kind of nice to have some of those meta cards to be able to kind of stand up against what you might be running against. So Dataluma is a fantastic option. We'll go ahead and throw 2 in here. Actually, it looks like I skipped over the Shantoto. This is one of the cards that I really enjoy out of Final Fantasy TCG, because they did an excellent job kind of representing the craziness of the character. And I'm sorry, I just realized my Music ended up stopping. I forgot I didn't have a repeating list going. So it's so good, and it's like I remember having this played against me for the first time, and I sat there and was like, well, crap, if I swing into this and they decide to block with it, all of my forwards take that damage. Like, the best way to deal with this card is to literally have it broken. And Odin can't target it. 7-drop Odin could. Deep Burn can't target it. Like, it's actually very limited on what can actually target it, aside from just unconditional break. Or stuff like Twilight Odin, whatnot. But this card is just the craziest of cards because it's so defensive. And it's so offensive at the same time. Like, oh man, it's nuts. The only downside is there's a bunch of friendly fire on it, and that's why I don't care for it. But man, is it such a nice turnaround card. We'll come back to it because we wanted to prioritize the other Shantotto, though. That other Shantotto, while obviously being more expensive, because dang thing's like $20, it's such a nice option to have because it's protected on your back row. It is sticky, but being able to kind of turn things around in your favor is great. And it can't be targeted as easily by elements that you might be up against. Whereas the forward Shantotto, obviously, there's a lot more break effects that are out there. So I'm going to splash one in for now, but we'll come back to it. It's not really too high up there on my list of keepers, so we'll see. Let's see. This Delita is fun, but I looked at it more when I was playing my Cloud deck because you would cheese out a breaking of someone else, I think. I think it was like a 5-drop ping or something. I can't remember. The Barret it's nice because it has a natural brave, but it focuses on a different archetype, which is the Avalanche operative. And actually, it's unfortunate there's not a whole lot of Avalanche operatives. I wish this Barret had a bit more usability, but Satellite Beam is awesome. 5,000 to all your forwards that your opponent controls. That's solid damage, honestly. Very solid AoE damage, and that's really, really fun. The on-curve Brave is also obviously a key selling point. So, Prish focuses on his archetype. Alright, so he really, really, really liked Raban, and I don't blame him. Card's really good, comes in at 9. You have ways to kind of keep him around. So he is, I think, a 2 of for sure. Ingus, I put it as a 2 of. Could increase it to a 3 of if you really need to. But now we're getting an Opus 5, which brought on a lot of really, really good Earth cards. Funnily enough, this card does see play. I don't understand why. It's mainly because it's so freaking costly, but it can break a backup a cost 4 or more, which can target Yuna in the water archetype. It can, well, obviously the 5-drop Yuna, but beyond that, it's like there's not a whole lot of targets that you can hit. Like, yeah, you could hit a Maria, you could hit a I don't know, I guess here in Opus 7 you could hit a Snow, but like it's so limited on what targets, and for 7-drop, I don't know, man. I'm not too big on it. I like my my Gilgamesh instead. Alright. We all saw it coming. Wool, he's meta, he's expensive as hell, but honestly, guys, he's too good to just not include. And I'm pretty sure the player recognized that when he played with mine. I had Wool at a 2 of. I'm honestly going to leave it to him to see if he wants to do that. We'll go ahead and put it in the list. This Gabranth is actually really good cheese with the Zodiark combo, because you can break your opponent's side of the board and then prevent all the damage done back to you. It's a little trickier, and it's going to be a little harder with the other Gabranth that we're running, so I'm going to avoid that combo for now. The player can certainly expand into that if he so chooses, but we'll see. Now, one of the things right now that we don't have at all is anti-monster tech, and I don't recall if there's a whole lot in Earth, to be honest, but one of those is Psycom Enforcer. Psycom Enforcer, when he enters, he's on curve, and you pick a monster of cost 2 or less, and you break it. That can be pretty pivotal to a lot of kind of turnaround plays. I had this played against me the moment I slapped down a Manison Warmac, which could have been the tipper point for a lot of stuff. So it's a good card. I honestly think that people should prepare for anti-monster tech, so I'm going to go ahead and throw 2 in here. I think he saw the use in the Psychom Wardens. I think it's good to go ahead and run them, because being able to slap down 3 9Ks on the board, potentially 11Ks depending on your board state, is really, really good. We're obviously going to need to trim some stuff down. Honestly, these guys might end up being cut just to try to fit in the theme of the deck, but we'll see. Honestly, this guy might take the place of Gipple. Who knows? Cecil was really good, but honestly, when I saw it, its most key plays were EX Burst, but I didn't see it much useful elsewhere because of the fact that the target had to be dull. If you're running a Earth Ice build where you had more access to dull things, fantastic. I would definitely say this card... excuse me. I would definitely say this card combos well. But I don't like the special ability because you cause self-damage, and that could hurt you. Granted, in this deck list, we're running the Gabranth that kind of focuses on having damage. I'm not too keen on this card. When I play tested it, I wasn't big on it. It's not in my list today. I'll leave it to the player if they want to expand into this, but I'm going to go ahead and exclude it. So let's see, the Berserker can't block, which kind of stinks. The Yang, again, like, it could be really good in this list. I just don't like how it doesn't have Natural Brave. It can get really big. Don't get me wrong. If you have those 5 Earth characters out, 10k with Brave is fantastic, and it's an excellent ice card. The problem is, when it didn't have Brave, I felt like I couldn't attack with this thing, which sucks. You have a 9k on the board that you feel like you can't attack with. It has to be defensive. That's kind of whack. So I wasn't big on this card. Again, it'll be something that the player can expand into if they wish. Definitely something to consider. Lannister. Now this is one of the more powerful kind of backswing cards. He starts at 7k, and in just 2 points of damage, he's on curve for a 5-drop. And then from there, he just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. It's a fun card. I actually haven't played this card yet, mainly because the thing that puts me away from it is its high cost. So it's really hard to work with. But I've seen a lot of lists run this, and it turns out to be really, really good. I've had it played against me, too, I think in the draft decks, when Opus 5 originally came out. And man, this thing really sucks to go up against. So definitely a card to consider if the player decides to go for a more backswing focus. So, really, really decent card. Now let me see. Yida and Papa are totally for their respective... that's for Silence build, so that's not going to help you here. Let me see here. Warrior of Light. So now we're into Opus 6. Let me see here. Warrior of Light, I think, can be pretty decent. I'm questioning it in this build, though. The reason why I question it is because when it comes in, you get to choose a job standard unit of only cost 2 or less. We're not really running a whole lot of standard units, and the ones that we are 3-drop right now, which is Psychom Wardens. So this would target more of your backups, which can come in handy, don't get me wrong. I just think it kind of detracts from this deck list right now. So I don't know if it's really worth the trouble to try to put in. It could be interesting tech, but I just don't know if it works at the moment. So we'll skip over that for now. So let's see. Funnily enough, this guy could search Delita. Is that worth it? Absolutely not. I should build a warrior deck one day. It'd be a Fire Earth. It'd be interesting. Man, if only I could convince the player to... One of our players in our dice roll challenge thing rolled Fire Earth. he just immediately went for a 7. I don't blame him. Matt is a monks are monk focused. Like, obviously it's a standard unit, it could totally fit its non-curve. What's kind of nice is, like, you can blow this monk up to deal 7k to a Adult forward. When I played it in the draft deck, I had a lot of these monks. Did I like it? No. I really didn't. Like, the fact that it has to sack itself to do the 7k kind of sucks. But it would be absolutely busted if it could just free tap for 7. So it's balanced, I guess, in that regard. Or I wish it would just do less. So, like, if it did like a 3k shot for maybe 1 CP in a doll, that'd be kind of cool. But unfortunately, it's not really gonna work in this list. And those guys aren't really gonna work, and that's particular and only good if you're running Vincent's. So that is our forwards. We obviously got 39. We're gonna need to trim down, but let's move over to our monsters. All right. So if you know me, which you probably don't, I love monster tech. Let me go ahead and label this here. We're gonna put this private. So I love monster tech. I always try to implement monsters in my list, and I always try to use monsters that aren't commonly seen. With Opus 6, we got one really good monster, which is Mashushu. I'm never going to pronounce that correctly, and I will always call it Mashushu with as many syllables that I wish. So obviously, being able to break a doll forward conditionally, as long as it's doll, fantastic. It's an incredible backswing, and the fact that the card doesn't have summoning sickness allows for a little bit of surprise play. Obviously, this gets stopped by Emperor, but honestly, I think Emperor stops all monsters anyway. Well, most, I will say. So really good card. I do want the player to poke around with it because it's a strong card. We'll put 2 in. Gigas requires Brave support in order to be really good. We obviously got Wall in there. We might implement Momodi. I'm going to put it as a 1 of. For now. Might get cut. We'll see. Because I think when the player played it... Currently, I'm an idiot. And I, in my Mono Earth list, have a 1 of Gigas. But I don't have Momodi. So the only way the Gigas can benefit is if Gigas is made into a forward that turn, and if Wool is out. So it's very limited on what it can do. So I didn't really care for it. Again, Natural Brave is really flipping good. So the fact that Gigas relies on another card in order to be efficient is kind of whack, but it's efficient only in the sake of offense. Having that defense is kind of nice too, because you can just kind of like, oh, you're going to swing in? That's cute. You're only at 7k. I'm going to make Gigas a forward real quick, and we're going to go ahead and block with him. Now, granted, most people know that Gigas is on the field, and they're not going to swing into a 9k, but that also helps. Like, you stop your opponent from doing things, so that's kind of nice. We'll include it as 1 of. Now, Hill Gigas, I think, is one that a lot of people discredit. It's a tone setter. When I played this card in my Mono Earth, it stopped people quite often because they either have to play around it, they have to bait it, or they just sit there and try to figure out what to do. It's a tone setter. You make them waste resource trying to get rid of this card, or you catch them. You catch them while they're sleeping. Like, it's so good. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I really like Hill Gigas. I really do. I'm going to put 2 in. Flandit actually saw play in LCQ. Oh, and I'm sorry, that was the Vanille, not Nats. Vanille and Flandit apparently got first place at the LCQ, which was really interesting. I really enjoyed this card when I ran it, but I only ran it, I think, as a 1 of or a 2 of. The player that played it ran it as a 3 of, and oh my god, tax decks. I think they're so nasty, because think about it. With this Flandit, if you have 3 of them, that's 3 separate 1 CP costs that your opponent has to pay. If they have the backups available, fantastic. You just turned off 3 of their backups. If they don't have it, well, you're forcing them to pitch their card and overpay for the effect. Like, that's solid. So, I don't know if I'd put it as a 3 of right now. I'm going to stick it as a 2 of. But a really good card. Calbrina, I'm not big on this card. The cost is the reason why. It's a 4-drop, and then to activate it to become a forward every time, you need 2. Really, really high for a monster. But what's nice about it, it has some lasting power. You can chump block with it, and it'll just come on right back. So that's kind of nice. Apologies. You take a drink. Talking a lot. However, the cost behind this is what's really kind of deterring me from it. The only way to get rid of the dang thing is to have it removed from game. So it's got a lot of lasting power. Or obviously bounce it back to your hand. But I'm not big on it just because of the cost behind it. And I think that's why it hasn't seen a whole lot of play. Magic Pot is super duper good. It's not super duper good in this list. Normally what you would want to do is you target a forward that benefits from being put to the break zone, and then bring in another version of said forward. So some key examples out there, Zac in the 7 archetype. You would target Zac with Magic Pot. That Zac will go to the grave, activating its effect to bring in a cloud. The Magic Pot will also bring in a Zac from your deck, so that's the case where you'd bring in the same card. And then now your Zac's back, but that first Zac's effect is going to resolve and bring in a cloud for you. And if you bring in the Opus 4 Light Cloud, it gets its 7k ping. Magic Pot's really good. I don't think it's going to work in this list. Manga Thief. Alright, the only thing that's hindering this thing, otherwise I totally recommend it, is the fact that it takes a UrCP to activate into a forward every single time you need it. What's nice about it is it has natural brave. Now, the store owner that we have at our shop actually ran this dude and actually really liked it. I don't blame him. The natural brave is really kind of nice because you can swing with it, and if you need to on your turn, you bring it in for that, say it's a chump block or whatever, but like it's on curve for the turn that you bring it in, technically, because it's a 2-drop, yes, but then it's a 3-drop to make it a forward. So if on that turn that you bring it in, you need a block on your opponent's turn, it's effectively a 3-drop, and then beyond there, its cost just continues to increase. But 1 CP can be pretty manageable, and it can make all the difference. It's another forward on the board that your opponent has to deal with. So Manga Thief is really, really good. I think it's one that we'll go ahead and include in the list. I don't even have this in my list, and I want to run it. So we'll go ahead and throw it in. Goblin. Okay, so it's actually kind of interesting. I think people have been discrediting this card by looking at it. Ingus has an effect. Obviously, its passive or field ability is saying, yeah, 1k boost to everybody on the board. That's really good. Its second ability is to tap 3 earth forwards or backups to give something 2k. Well, Goblin gives something 2k, and it doesn't have to dull your backups. It doesn't have to dull your resources. All it has to do is go to the break zone. So what's kind of nice is you can slap this Goblin down and be like, unless they get rid of this card, I have a 2k boost whenever I need it, whether that's offense or defense. A lot of people have been discrediting Goblin, I think. It's certainly something to look into. And I think it's something to at least include in our list for now. And we'll kind of see where that goes. I am so bad on this music thing because I don't have a list. We're gonna pull up this one. So yes, let's throw in Goblin. Obviously, we have a lot of monsters. I'm probably gonna go ahead and cut Gigas. I think it requires a little too much support, and I think that's gonna be a little too much for the player right now. So we'll go ahead and cut that. We still have a lot of monsters. We'll come back to it. Alright, so let's move to our summons. we obviously have a lot of options here, and I have play tested quite a few of these. Some of them are going to be right out, some of them are going to go straight in. Let's start with the ones that are going to definitely go straight in, and that's our Hecaton chairs. I really like both versions of this card. You need something that's going to help with getting Minwu off the board, or what's kind of fun is if you're not up against Minwu, you can take out a booster card. Most people are running a booster card in their decks. So being able to kind of combat trick into making them lose a situation, pretty solid. So Hecaton Chair is a immediate in. Another immediate in, 3 Cockatrice. Oh my god, people hate this card, and I understand why. You can literally play this card in an exchange of fight stuffs, and once you declare a block, you can activate Cockatrice to prevent the damage done to that card. So it's kind of like a free block. And because you've already declared a block, it misses the timing to say, well, it can't block. So we're good. It's kind of nice, right? One combination that I didn't even think of, but the player that played this did think of, is Raban. The moment you play his ability, like his entrance ability, just on stack, activate Cockatrice. It doesn't take any damage. You're not going to be able to attack or block with it on this turn anyway, unless you're bringing it in via some sort of effect. Yeah, you get a free forward out of it, and you still get your 9k ping on the other side of the board. Like, that's pretty cool. So, Cockatrice is definitely an immediate 3 of. And I think that's definitely going to stay at that point. Now, Titan, very expensive card, but obviously very, very good, and you want to see it EX burst if you can. It's kind of like Hecaton Chair, except for it's a one-way shot instead of a two-way shot, and you get the 2k boost on top of it. So, really, really good. The cost is the only thing that's hindering this. So I will put it at 2 for now. For now. We'll see if that kind of gets cut. Cactuar requires a dual element in order to be good, and it's too situational. I'm on Earth deck list that, yes, we are running Shantoto, but that's too situational to rely on one card in your entire deck to make this card good. Carbuncle is really kind of nice because it becomes a reusable card. You get to pick a forward, give it 2,000 power, and if that power became 9,000 or less, you return Carbuncle to your hand. So that's really good. I tried to playtest this, but unfortunately when I did, whenever I saw it, I wanted to pitch it, and I just never got a good test on it. I think it's really good. I'll go ahead and throw it in for now. Now, I know our player does have Titans, but I don't know if he has the Hecaton chairs, or if he does, he only has one. So we'll have to see which summons he ends up running anyway. Atomos, I haven't really been big on this card, and if I did see it, I wanted to see it in damage. Kind of like Mashushu, you get a conditionalist Dull Break. And I say conditionalist meaning like it doesn't have a cost that's associated behind it, or something like that. The other effect of being able to deal forward 8,000 damage obviously can straight one-shot a 4-drop that's unboosted. So that's pretty cool. The thing that's really hurting this card is the fact that it costs so much. 6-drop to do a 4-drop on curve is kind of oof. And then also having the option to do what Mashushu does with 4-drop is also kind of oof. The reason why it's a 6-drop, because you might be like, well, if they're both 4-drop options, what's going on? Is because it's EX Burst. Being able to have that option as a turnaround option is what's increasing the cost of this card. So, I'm not big on this card, though. Player could run it if he wants, but I'm not big on it. Alright, so Romus. I tried very hard to make this card work. Incredibly hard to make this card work. Unfortunately, I can't suggest it. I wish the card did better than what it does, because what it does is based on the amount of damage that you have, you get to revive a forward back to your hand based on a cost equal to or less than the damage that you have taken. Your opponent also has to select a forward of cost equal to or less than the damage that you have been dealt and put it in the break zone. What's unfortunate about that is that I really wish Zeromus brought the card onto the field, whether it was dull or just onto the field, because it really kind of stinks that you could revive something back to your hand after paying for a 7-drop summon. Like, if this was a 6-drop, solid. Let me try to make that backup summoner that we're going to cover here in a moment. Let me try to make that work. But unfortunately, just at a 7-drop, it makes this really, really hard to pull off. There is a combination that we could do with one of the new Opus 6 cards to make this card work, but I think that's too complicated for our player right now. And I'm not trying to discredit his intelligence or anything. It's just more so he's kind of new to the game. I don't want to make things complicated. So if he wants to try to make this card work, by all means, it's just going to rely on other tech. So I like the sound of this card, but trying to make it work was very difficult. Atomos, it can be good. Obviously, it depends on your board state. So you'd want a boosted LeBlanc or something, for example. Let me see here. I'm sorry. It relies on your board state, and that could really honestly kind of depend on what effect that you get. So it's kind of limited in that sense. Hashmal really isn't. It doesn't have any use in this deck, so we're gonna skip over that. Carbuncle. Okay, so in Opus 6, yeah, Opus 6, there is a backup that came out called Kate Sith. It does what this card does, just more expensive. The problem with that is that you lose the surprise factor. You stop your opponent from being like, well, I'm just going to play this summon. And you're going to be like, well, I'm going to tap this dude, drop this card, and play a Carbuncle to cancel your summon. Like, with the Kate Sith, they see that you have that option on the board. So that's going to stop them from making a play that you could otherwise make them waste resource on. I am honestly going to start running Carbuncle over Kate Sith because of that fact alone. So, yes, I'm going to suggest Carbuncle. Alright, Titan can be super good because obviously it allows you to free block. It allows you to counter, say, an Odin effect. It's really good, and you can counter Odin effects with Doga as well, which will probably end up throwing in Doga. But in this case, I tried to play it, and it did have some uses, just not enough. I didn't see it doing enough for the deck to have it take a slot in a 50-card deck. If we had 60, maybe. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and skip over it. Golem. You know, honestly, no one runs this card anymore. I run it in my Mono Earth card because, oh my god, the number of turnaround plays that you can get with a block gaining 4,000 power is insane. So there's obviously some cheats that can be played around it. You know, if you're playing into someone who's going to just Bismarck your blocker, activating Golem isn't really going to save you from the Bismarck. Because probably what they're going to do and how it's going to need to go down is you declare a block, turn player has priority, they activate Bismarck. You try to activate that Golem, the stack resolves backwards. So Golem will increase the power by 4k because you're blocking, but then effectively that is just going to add to the total of whatever is being blocked. So, like, say your opponent's swinging in with a 7k against your 8k. You know it's coming. You try to play Golem in response. You're increasing your 8k to a 12k, which is then going to be halved by Bismarck. Obviously, if you have any other effects to throw on stack to help with that, fantastic. Certainly try to throw those in, but in this case, it's kind of limited in what it can do. But that's against one element. Let's not try to prep your entire deck against one element here, folks. Golem is really, really good. You can give a 4k boost on a block for 1 freaking CP. Please, for the love of God, start running Golem again, because it helped me so much in my local qualifier to just sneak in some tricky plays. So we're going to put that as a 2 of. We obviously have a crap ton of summons. We'll get to it. Because we're gonna have to trim down anyway. We're at 66 out of 50. So now let's finally look at our backups. I have a suggestion for anyone who's trying to build a list. Try to have 10 2-drop backups. It'll help you in the long run, and you want to try to see a 2-drop backup in your first hand. So I definitely recommend it. And what's nice is we have a lot of really solid 2-drop options. Let me see here. So, sorry, trying to also keep up on some messages. So, Inacrow is going to be backup. It's not a 2-drop, but it's the first one I saw. Inacrow obviously gets a for sure spot in our list. We want to make sure we have the boosters to make our Earth due to are already big even bigger. I like boosters at 2. I don't like to see 3 of them because then it takes away from other tech that I could run. So 2 is good. This black belt I haven't ever considered before, and I think I see why. 1 CP, technically 2 CP because you have to dull the black belt. Sticky, technically, but only gains 1,000 power for the block. It could decide things, but that's too iffy to really kind of rely on. We've already got the Kamaris in there. The Kefka, there's some cheese that you could do, but we're not running the cheese. So giving someone a 5k boost is obviously really good, but at the end of turn, you're breaking that forward. And it's sticky. We don't have a whole lot of anti-sticky tech right now, so we don't want to clog our board with this. Could it work? Absolutely. You could boost that Backgammon to frickin' 10k, swing in whenever you need to, and your opponent has to block it on its own. Only downside is you're for sure losing your attacker, unless you followed up with some different effect. There's other cheese that could definitely work with Kefka, but I don't think it has a place in this deck currently. Could it? Certainly. You just need different options. The Shantoto. So this is a Shantoto that we definitely want to run. It's a really good board wipe. The player that I'm making this deck for knows the Shantoto and knows how good it is. He misplayed it once apparently during one of his matches, like he played it too early, and he just wiped one forward off the board. So obviously he's going to learn more and more as he gets used to kind of the turnaround potential that this card has. So obviously you run as many as you can get your hands on, because Shantoto's a hard card to get. It's about 20 bucks. We're going to go ahead and throw 2. The problem that we just ran into now is we both have money cards here and here. Both these cards very expensive. The player's going to have to decide what he can run and what he wants to dip the money on. So we'll have to see what he ends up going with. Tama is one of those 2-drop backups that actually ends up being one of the best choices because, 1, it's not sticky, which kind of helps, but 2, it allows you to surprise play. It's not so much a surprise when your opponent sees it's coming, but I have gotten some really nasty plays off with Tama, so I highly recommend this card. Now, I didn't really understand this card at first, so let me fully explain. The ability to play a character onto the field of a cost is basically allowing you to play a character in response to an effect going off, which normally isn't available. The only options you normally have is to play a summon, which is not a character, or to play any existing action abilities or special abilities that are on the field. Tama allows you to get around that and try to play something in response. So there was a play that I got where opponent was swinging with an Alua, which, if you're unfamiliar with it, is a really strong lightning card. Has a natural protection ability that cancels out the first ability that's targeting it, and then it loses that protection for the end of turn, but at the next turn it gains that back. So really powerful. What I did is he swung in with the Alua. I Tama'd into Raban, the 4-drop who hit something for 9k. I slammed it down. I targeted Alua. That got rid of Alua's protection ability because obviously it saved itself from the 9k damage. But because that 9k damage didn't happen, the effect fizzles, Raban didn't hit himself. So, guess what? He's there to block. Block the Alua, Alua died. Like, there's some really awesome plays with Tama that you can do like that. So really, really suggest this card. I like running him as a 2-of because we want to be able to have options on tech. Giving Brave to someone's really, really nice. The only downside to this card is it only does it once. So I'm not big on this card. And it's sticky. We have some better options that we can run instead. Alright. This card is possibly the one that I'm going to recommend. There is this monk that a lot of people will probably recommend over it. The problem that I had is that effectively for 5 CP, you're giving something 3k power, which is a pretty hefty boost, don't get me wrong, and you're giving it Brave. The problem is, Brave only benefits you when you're attacking. You want to do these boosts as a surprise. So, the only kind of way to really make this effective is to give Begammon it before he attacks. So it's not as good, you know? Whereas this 2-drop monk, for technically 4 CP, you're giving something a 2000 power. Now, that doesn't hit as hard because it's a 2-drop, first off, so is the other monk, that's fine. But for only 1 CP, and putting the monk to the break zone, you're giving it the 2k boost, which again, same as Ingus, same as our Goblin that I was trying to hype up earlier. So, I think this monk is what I'm going to prefer over this monk because of what it does. Trying to pay for that 2 CP Earth, whatever, to make this monk work was just, it was too slow for me. So I didn't really care for it. And if only there were more Earth Moogles. There's technically more Earth Moogles now, yes, but it could be fun to have a repeat block boost. That'd be really fun tech. So, well, let's go ahead and throw this monk in at 2. We're going to skip over the trio here, because they're very 7 focused on what they do, and it's not really going to help our deck. This Ranger, I forget what he does. Attacking Earth forward, gain 1,000. Machinist is bad. All versions of Machinists are just awful. They're great in draft format, I think, but really here, they're just kind of silly. This one's a little better, but the problem is it's a 6-cost conditional break, because it has to be a 4-cost or less. Not big on that. Not big on that at all. Sorbet is the one that I was hoping to make work. How many Moogles do we have? So I think there's only 2. Ooh, there are 3. Alright. Man, I didn't even think about this. Because you can free play at the cost of sacking your Moogle after the fact. One of the Mog, or like one of the other Moogles. Is that worth? Maybe. No, 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 no. Because the effect takes 2 CP and we're only gaining maybe at max 2 or 3 blocking power, which is almost as good as the Golem, but the Golem does it for 1 CP. No. No. I wish this was better, but we're not gonna fall into a bad tech trap. No, 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 no. Let's see, get back to where we were here. Is this guy even any good? Choose 1 mannequin you control against 2,000 power. When it goes to the break zone, break all the Harlequins that you control. Wow. Nope. Alright, this is our other version of Rabon, where he does a similar effect, except for it's a one-way shot. Honestly, you could run this one over the forward version, and you get a CP generator. It is sticky, which kind of stinks. But it's certainly something to consider. Surprisingly enough, it's more expensive out of the 2 Rabons, even though the other one sees more play. And that's probably just because of its hero. The artwork's very pretty. But we won't consider it for now, but we might if we need to take some forwards out. And we'll get there. This Rydia revives an Earth Summon from your break zone. We actually have a better effect that I think will run over that. Masked Woman, choose 1 doll, cost 4, break it, it's sticky. Not too keen on this one, but it does see play. If we were running Mystic, I think, to get rid of sticky backups, then I would definitely suggest it. Because currently we have, because we're not going to count Kamari. We never play that one. We've got 2 sticky backups at the moment, so we'll consider if we need more backups. But for now, meh. Summoner. All right, so this is the one that we could try to free play Titan off of. Effectively, we're paying the same cost, however, to get that 5-drop Titan free played, because 2-drop in, 3-drop to do its effect, and you sack the summoner, because if you didn't, that'd be busted. I want to see this card work, but I don't think it can. If I was doing a summon focus with, like, say, the Rydia, I definitely consider this one more. But it's kind of iffy. So I don't know if that's truly worth the trouble. Swarties is a no. WRO member, no. Girl Fire God, her name is no. Ninja is too particular. It only hits a 2 or less. Pelennor actually does see play. And the reason why is because, not because of the Brandless effect. Giving Brandless Brave. Woo. Brandless is bad. But it's the other effect that he's got. He does 1,000 damage to all forwards. Not only do you hit your opponent's board, which could become a deciding factor on if your opponent survives an exchange, but also, if we have Dataluma on the field, you just hit Dataluma with damage. And guess what? He gets a 4K ping off it. So you get to hit something for 5, barring, say, like a Minwu or something. So, kind of limited on what it can do. I haven't ran it in my list. I don't particularly care for the card, but it can be pretty decent. Let me see here. This Rydia Search is a summon. It could be decent, but it's sticky and I don't care for it. We'll come back to it. I'm not sure what this music is that I picked. I'm trying to aim on 10 music. Don't know how well it's working. Yo. I think it's going. Okay. So, this black belt. Oh, yes. Okay. When I initially got, into Mono Earth, I looked at this card and I was like, holy crap, why aren't people running this? And one of the combos that I really focused on it doing was, Begammon. You'd focus on Begammon, giving it a 5k boost to, make it force block at a 10k. And what's fun is you can if you really, really want to, you could even Tama it in, because Tama can bring in any character, and it's cheap to do that. So, a very interesting tech that can be implemented with this card. We'll come back to it, though, because I did find it kind of slow and kind of very particular with what it did, since it was just trying to combo off of one card. So, I ended up having to cut it eventually just because it kind of slowed things down, but it could find a place in this deck. We'll see. This Black Mage. Oh, okay. I highly recommend this Black Mage. It is going to get a position in this deck because this helps your other Earth forwards get anti-ice tech. Very, very important. Very, very handy, especially in a meta that likes Turbo Discard. Obviously, Turbo Discard isn't going to help you if you have to discard it, but it'll help against the dull stuff occasionally. So really, really good card. Alright. This Tama, I didn't care for it. I tried to make it work. Tried to make it work as a one-of. But it's a 7 cost. When he enters the field, it does free play a forward for you. A 5 cost or less, which everything in your deck running is 5 cost or less. So it targets everything in your deck, which is great. But how often are you going to have a full back row and one card to pitch in order to be able to free play that card that you're trying to do? It's not very likely. So you need a really good hand state in order to see this card being very effective. The second effect takes 6 CP, so 4 backups and 1 card drop, and Tama goes to the break zone to pick a forward out of your break zone and play it onto your field dull. And you can only do that during your turn. So, kind of limited on what it can exactly do, and I didn't like how it relied on so much resource to pull off. Because, oh, and I'm sorry, no, you can't actually do the 5 back row tapping and 1 card pitch because your back row is full. This is a backup. So you have to do 3 back row pitch, or I'm sorry, 3 backups dulled, 2 pitch, play that, and then play your forward. I just don't care for it. I think it's too slow. Biggs is only good in an Avalanche Operative. This one can give Brave, but I think the cost is what kind of hinders it. Because if we're going to run that, we should just be running Momodi. And we'll get to Momodi here in a moment. Monk, choose 1 dull forward you control. Can't be broken. The only downside of this one is that it requires a dull. So I wasn't big on it. Botanist is really, really good. Be aware of the errata on Botanist, where you have to pick a card that doesn't have a multi-card ability. I think it could certainly work in this deck, and it's kind of nice because you can get Kamari's back for Ronso Rage Fuel. But that's our only special ability that we run in this deck. So it's going to be very limited, and I think with that we might run it as a one-of, but that might get cut if we need room. Graviton can be really good. Think about if you cast a Carbuncle, you can give something effectively a 4K boost, or you can give 2 forwards 2K boosts. So a lot of people actually do end up running Graviton, and I'm surprised I haven't yet, because this could be pretty important. So let's fit that in. If the player needs it, I'm pretty sure I have spares on that too. So Miner's really good. It definitely gets a spot in our list immediately because its tech is just solid. Doga is really, really, really good. It's just good. You protect yourself from break effects, which can be pretty gosh darn important. So it's something to definitely consider. So yeah, it's going to very easily get a 2-drop, or sorry, a 2-of spot. Star Sybil is really good. Kind of a hard card to find sometimes though, so it might end up getting cut in this list just because 1, the cost, and 2, it's kind of limited on what it can target. We're not running the Dark Engine. It's only targeted Shantoto, which, don't get me wrong, can be an incredibly clutch play. Downside, the cost. We're not running Earth Wind, so we can't make that cheaper. And 2, it's just an expensive card. Like, again, I don't want to make this deck insanely expensive for the player. We're already making it kind of expensive, saying, hey, you need 2 Shantotas and 2 Wolves, and then we're also tacking Datalumas on there. Like, we're already kind of bumping up the price here, and that's going to make him need to consider some other tech in the meantime. So let's skip over Star Sybil for now, actually, just because that's going to kind of hinder what our deck's looking for. Mog Mobius is another one that I think gets an instant in because he searches any forward out of your deck. That can be incredibly clutch, very important. Momodi. Momodi, on the turn that it comes in, can give Brave to someone. From that point forward, it can also give Brave to another person. And I am really appreciative that they put in the sentence that said you can only use that ability once during your rain phase and only once per turn. Because, oh my god, if you could repeat this effect, it would be busted. Because you just give Brave to all your homies. So, yes, Momodi gets, I think, a 2 of. Yeah, because you want to see that, but we don't want to take too much tech out. This is another card that you could consider. Because you can either free cast, say, a Titan, or if you're that crazy, Zeromus, or you can revive 2 summons. Does it fit in this deck list? I don't think so. Just because it's an expensive card, and it's CP cost, not its dollar cost. And I think that's more advanced play, so we're going to skip over it for now and not try to squeeze that in here. Epitaph is like specific to his category, so we're going to skip over that. Scholar does what Rydia did, but it's a 2-drop, allowing us to CP pitch on, or like use it as a CP generator in the meantime, and then for just 2 CP and pitching it, you can revive an Earth Summon. So yeah, it's not an EX burst, whatever, but it being a 2-drop is very helpful, so I think it can definitely find a place here. Krill helps against bouncing. Its cost is a little up there, so I think I might just run it as a 1-of, or it could be potentially cut completely. Water is a very big counter to Earth, because Earth has a lot of expensive cards most times. So Water is just like, well, that's cool, you just paid for that 4-drop, let's make you pay for it again. And it's annoying. So this could be seen as a 2-of, but for now, I think just a 1-of can be okay. It'll be one of those ones that you definitely want to see on your board, and it's a sticky forward. So Kate Sith is a 2-drop, but going back to our Carbuncle allows you to kind of have the surprise factor a bit easier, because Kate Sith requires more CP to pull off, and that can slow it down. So I think I'm going to pull it out. I was originally very excited for this card, but I think Carbuncle is just stronger. Pavlov is specific. Minfilia, if he can get his hands on it, this is a fun card. Effectively, it's 2 CP. And I say that because, yes, you have to pay the 6 CP in order to play it, but you can, you get 4 CP back because you're reviving 2 characters out of your break zone back to your hand. From there, you can instantly break a light or dark card, which usually those cards are very powerful. Say it's a Nidhogg. Yeah, they just banish stuff from your board on entrance, but you don't want to deal with a 9k, do you? Let's just up and break it. Or, dang, that Shadow Lord just came in and broke a bunch of 2-drops. That's cute. Let's break that, too. Other examples on light, that Cloud just came crashing in. Well, I don't want to see no Blade Beams. Let's get it out of here. Warrior of Light. That's a great example where this card can shine, because you can just up and break that dude. Trying to keep it clean. So, really, really a solid option. I think I ran it as a 1-of, so we'll put it in as a 1-of tech. We might actually just immediately cut that. It's something that can improve the deck, but right now it's like a $20-some card, so let's actually not worry about putting that in. And Moogle Brothers works off the Moogle archetype. We obviously saw earlier that there are actually 3 Moogles, surprisingly. So it could work for that, but I don't know if that's really worth it here. Maybe in a Moogle archetype deck that ran Earth Ice, maybe? I don't know. Maybe. So we're at 90 cards. We have to trim 40 off of this. I'm going to grab a drink real quick because I've been talking a lot. My throat hurts. So give me a second. I'll be right back. Alright. Hopefully this music is not too terribly loud. I'm going to turn that down just a tad. Alright. So, we got a lot of cards here. Let's first start, I think, with our backups. We have a lot of backups. We want to try to get that down to maybe 18. So we need to kind of decide what's going to be worth. Immediately I look at this, and while Botanist is really, really good as far as like reviving special abilities, it's not our focus of the deck. I loved Botanist in my Cloud 7 deck because you got Cloud Fuel back, and you obviously had a lot more targets to try to get that back. Kamari is limited on what it can bring back, which is just, there's only one version of Kamari that you can target with it. Well, no, it's one character, but again, the backup is never going to be played ever. So, it unfortunately doesn't work well in this deck. I like the tech, it's not going to work here. Let's see. This is already getting a little difficult. We have a lot of 2-drop backups. A lot of 2-drop backups. We want the Kamaris in there for Kamari Fuel, but with it not being the focus of our deck, I think we could afford to just run off the forward Kamaris. I'd say let's go with that. We'll cut the backup Kamaris, and if the player decides I want to focus on having Ronso Rage more, try to fit the Kamaris back in. By all means. I cut the Kamaris down in my Mono Earth deck list to just the forwards before I eventually cut Kamari out of my list completely, just because people weren't playing special abilities anymore. But in this case, you know, you still have access to the Ronso Rage with just the forwards. It's just going to be a little harder to pull off sometimes. So I think cutting the backups isn't going to hurt us that much. But again, if he wants to try to get those back in, fantastic. Try to fit them in somewhere. Black Mages are anti-ice. That's really important. Dogas are anti-lightning, which is pretty important. Krillas are anti-water, which can be pretty important. Mogmobius, very important to be able to search forwards just for consistency's sake. Monk is looking probably a weaker point right now, because we're already having access to get 2k boost with Ingus, who's definitely going to be in this list. Carbuncle, which potentially will stay in this list. Goblin, who I'm hoping to keep in this list. Golem, technically. Technically Titan. Like, there's a bunch of other stuff that's already giving 2k boost, so I don't think the Monk is completely necessary here. We've got plenty of 2-drops, so let's go ahead and cut him out. Scholar gets an Earth Summon back, and honestly, I haven't played this much because I stopped playing my Mono Earth deck since Opus 6 dropped, but when I played it in the draft deck, this boy was clutch. I was able to pull an incredibly helpful card out of my grave because I had already used that tech to try to get something back. So, for example, I've got 4 backups, for example, 4 backups on my back row. I've got a card that I can pitch, and I need to get a Hecaton Chair into my hand right this instant to try to help me save myself. Because homie's attacking or something, and I didn't use my backups. Just an example. There's a Hecaton Chair, 2-drop, in my break zone that I want to get, or even a Golem, because that's super cheap. I can tap 2 of my backups, pitch the Scholar, who's one of our 4 backups, to the grave, snatch up that Hecaton Chair. I can then pitch the 1 card that I have in hand to play Hecaton Chair in response, because I still have turn priority at that point. Or, well, not turn priority, but like, if the opponent's attacking and they pass priority after I declared block, I can action ability Scholar and still on stack do the Hecaton Chair to, on the attack stack, break the attacker, for example. Because I could just pick maybe one of my other forwards that's on the field who might be dull. Who knows? Other examples, Golem. You know, you tap those 2 to play or pitch Scholar to the grave. You grab that Golem, you pitch your 3rd remaining Earth backup to give that blocker 4K. Solid Tech. Scholar's really good. I think he gets a place in here for those kind of more advanced plays to help him have some of those turnaround options. Tama's really good. It's kind of a little bit of advanced play, but I think it's something that I want him to get used to being an Earth player, because Tama Tech is very common. So definitely going to suggest that. In a Crow obviously gets a spot in this deck list. Don't want to cut that. Graviton, man, we're still at 21 backups, and that's a lot. The problem is he's giving such an easy boost, so it's going to have to cut into our other stuff. We might honestly have to come back to our backups, because the remainder of this list is all solid tech that we don't want to lose. Graviton maybe being one of the ones that I'm not more familiar with, but reading the card and knowing that people run this card because of their summon tech makes it really, 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 really good. Think about this activating on top of a Titan. You just gave something a 4K boost to do a 1K shot towards. Oh my god. Now granted, you can't... Or no, that's an auto ability. No. I don't know if that activates. I'll have to ask on that. I don't know if that activates on Titan EX Burst, is the question that's floating around in my head right now. Alright. Let's go over to our forwards, because we have a lot, and we still need to cut 35 cards out of this deck. Instantly, things that we don't need. The Delita is probably the weakest option out of our 2-drops right now, because we got Force Block Tech with Begammon, and we got Ormy, who's part of our trio, which is our theme. I really like Begammon. I like the tech that it does. Delita, unfortunately, is just the weakest link out of our 2-drops. So let's go ahead and cut her. Out of our 3-drops here, we've got Ingus and we got Logos. Those are definite ends. The Psycom Enforcers are in as our anti-monster tech, which otherwise we don't have in this deck. So we kind of sort of need that, just in case there's anything really troublesome. The Psycom Wardens, however, might be the weakest, and oh my god, people are going to put me on fire for saying Psycom Wardens are the weakest, but for what the theme that we're going for is, and what we're trying to achieve, the Wardens are really kind of looking not the greatest option right now. Let's come back to it, though, because I said I think initially the Wardens might replace Skipple. Could be an option. Looking at our 4-drops, we have a ton of 4-drops. A lot of 4-drops here. And that could be a problem. Could very much be a problem. Actually, before we get to those, because a lot of those are really solid, let's go back down here to our more expensive cards. I think I love the cards, don't get me wrong. I love the cards, I love the tech that they bring in. The problem that we have is just that the... Oh, let me find another... Yeah, we'll go with that one. The problem that we run into is that we're trying to fit a certain theme. And because of that, they're 4 fun tech that you try to splash in, and it just kind of hinders what we're trying to achieve. So, as much as I want to see this card played, I will playtest it myself. Delita, he's got to be able to afford one. He loved the card when he played it in my deck, but he's got to be able to afford one. Let's go ahead and cut it. If he wants to splash it in later, by all means. Shantoto, He's got to be able to locate one. Could be a nice defensive card if he wants to play it, but we're going to cut it for now. Vanille, it is a cheap card. It is an incredibly cheap card, and I think that might be its saving grace. So we might keep it in for now. It's looking decently weak, though, because it's just a if I pull it off tech. Because, again, it kind of relies on hand state, it kind of relies on board state to make Vanille not require so much resource, or to make it effective, you know. So we'll keep the one of in for now, but it's on the chopping block. Gabranth, I love the tech, I really do, but he has to find it, which honestly I'm pretty decently sure our local game store has this card. But for now, let's wait to let him splash that tech in. Oh, now we get to the difficult part. Our 4-drops. A lot of these are really solid. A lot of these are part of our theme of our deck. Wool. I am a mono earth player when it comes to competitive. Maybe a mono fire. Wool, really, 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 really good. When in discussion with the player on if he can get wools, and when I warned him, they're, I think, still about $30. Let me look up the price here on TCG Player. He was initially kind of like cringing because that's expensive, and especially if you need 2 or 3, you're talking close to $100 for one card. Well, I'm sorry, up to one character. The tech is really good. And the reason why it's so expensive is just because of the fact that it's a really, really good card. But that's really kind of hindering it right now because we wanted to try to keep the cost down. We're already kind of killing him with the Shantotos, but we need a board wipe option in this deck. So we want to make sure that we're not making this too difficult for our player who's going to utilize this to afford this deck and to get into the game. I am waiting for TCG Player. Okay, yeah, so like right now it's showing at $35. 2 of those dudes is $70 right off the bat, and oof. So it's hindering, unfortunately, on our list right now. He can find options to replace with this card once he gets his hands on them, but for now, I think it's best if we go ahead and cut it. Raban, it's sometimes a hard card to find. I know he really likes the tech. He really, really enjoyed Raban. We'll keep it in for that fact, but it's possible that that could potentially be hindering us on some other things that we're trying to achieve. So he doesn't have them on hand right now, and it could be one of those things where it's like, as soon as you get it, certainly try to fit it in. But it just kind of depends on if he can make that work. So, looking at our other 4-drops, the obviously the weakest one that I had trouble making work was Gipple. I think we can try to make him work, whereas I can't loan him Rabans. So let's cut the Raban. Whoops. But, you know, it's certainly one of those ones where it's like, if you find it, fantastic, try to make it fit into your deck. So, yeah. Really good card. Try to make it work if you can, but... Alright. So, right now, we still have a lot of forwards. And that's kind of an issue. What it honestly might come down to, he might not be able to make the Datalumas fit in just yet. He doesn't really have any self-ping, and it's a defensive card otherwise. So you could potentially cut Dataluma, but that's like cutting all really good cards out of this deck, aside from our Psycom Wardens. So kind of iffy on that. So, not sure. Let's come back to that, I think. And we'll kind of see how that runs. Begaman might be a cut too. We'll see. Alright, so looking at our monsters, we got Flandit, which is attacks. We got Goblin in there as a 2k boost. We got Hilgigus in there. We got Bonga Thief, and we got Mushushu. If I've got to cut some of these, it'd probably be Flandit. It'd probably be Bonga Thief. Kind of sucks to cut that guy, but... Because how many Natural Brave dudes we got? 1, 2, 2. And then everything else relies on Momodi. Man, that's iffy. I don't think he's got... We'll cut the Hilgigus, I guess. And that'll work. That'll work. So we still need to do at least 21 cards here. Cockatrice, I think, is definite in. Golem is a definite in. Carbuncle could be a cut. I'd hate to take out all of our potential 2k boosts, and especially with the combination of that and Graviton. But in general, you're getting a 2k boost off of Graviton being out. Question is if we're keeping Graviton, because everything else kind of has a really solid spot in our list. Let's cut it for now. Definitely something you could splash in as tech. But our summon numbers are really high right now, so that's really kind of difficult. So yeah, we'll cut that for now. Still gotta do 19 cards from this freaking list. That is tough. Alright. So if we've got to cut our losses to try to keep a theme here, Begamon's gonna go... Oh, people are gonna hate me. Psychon Warden's gotta go. Forcer might get dropped to a 1-of tech, and Vanille's gotta go. This keeps our theme of the Final Fantasy X. It keeps us at a decent number of forwards. We obviously have some really good tech in there. Anti-Ice with Guy, Dataluma for anti-pinging, and also a really nice defensive card. Yeah, so that might end up being our for sure forward line. We keep our 2-drops in there with Ormy for anti-Paul tech, and even Dataluma could ping Paul off the board if Paul's unboosted. When it comes to summons, the lineup is so good. I don't want to cut any of it. This is tough. How many do I need? Still 12? Jesus Christ. I mean, if you gotta do it, you'd cut the carbuncles. Could cut the Hecaton chairs, because then that way you're relying on Titan for your shots. It's just Hecaton chairs so cheap. Yeah, we gotta cut the Bonga Thieves. Alright, so now we're down to 8. I think as soon as he can get them, Shantato goes in, but it's an expensive card that I don't expect him to find very easy. We'll cut it for now for the sake of the list. And people are definitely going to call me crazy on that one. Let me see. 6 more here. We can cut Gipple down to a 2-of. We're still getting the tech. I think that'll work. protecting ourselves on one matchup with Krill. Maybe against Valforce too, which could be important. Maybe reduce the Graviton to a 1-of.
How many summons are you running?
There's 11 summons in there right now.
You're gonna put Graviton for 1-of?
I have to cut something here. Because I still need to cut 4 more cards out of this list. Ugh. So we've got the focus of the deck is Final Fantasy X. So that usually gives an immediate in for Forming Logos. Yeah, I know, right? It gives an immediate in for the trio, and then he also wanted to poke around with Kamari. Ronzo Rage. We're not running the backup Kamari because too much stuff trying to go on right now. And then Guy is in there as anti-ice tech, obviously. So is our Black Mage to help some of the other guys out. Gipple's in there kind of for theme, but also because he's a cheap card. I don't want to rack up the price on this thing. So getting that 4K boost in could also help play Hecaton Terror plays, or whatever. Even if he like Tama's it in, that's an insane boost to everybody on the board. Dataluma's in there, but I think the issue with Dataluma is he is either going to be hard to find. I'm going to look up his price right now. He's either going to be hard to find or kind of expensive, because he keeps fluctuating between $2 and $7. If it's $2, it's obviously not too bad, but $7's a little more up there. Yeah, market price right now is $7, so he's jumped up in price. So you could cut Dataluma.
I wouldn't.
It's too powerful of a card to really kind of like, I don't know. What I'm thinking is, it's unfortunate you really can't, like, it's, you'd be...
Out of Goblin?
Huh?
What are you getting out of Goblin?
It's a... So you know how Ingus has to tap himself and tap 2 other Earth Forwards or backups for that 2K? Goblin just says, sack me. And you get a 2K. So instead of you having to wreck your board of blockers or resources, you pay the 1 CP for a Goblin, and then you have that available whenever. If your opponent really wants to blow up your Goblin, they'll waste resource to do it.
You're running 18 backups?
It's at 18 backups right now.
Do you need 18?
Earth is a slower element, so 18 is very comfy. And everything that we're running in here serves a purpose. You know, we got Black Mage in there as anti-ice, Doga's in there as anti-thunder, Krill's in there as a 1-of for anti-water, or anti-Valfor, I guess, and wind. Mogmobius is in there because that's a staple. Being able to search any of your forwards out of your deck is incredibly clutch. Scholar's in there just as a nice tech to be able to recover some of your important summons, because a lot of plays rely on the summons. Tama could potentially be brought down to a 1-of, but you're familiar with Tama tech. Anacro's in there at 2 because I think 2 is a comfy number for boosters. Graviton's in there now at a 1. Modi's in there as a 2, and Miner's in there as a 2. So, like I said, it's a comfy spot. You could reduce the Tama down to a 1, since you're probably only going to get that tech off one time anyway.
Same thought process on the Scholar as well.
That could be one to
Scholar
consider.
Does what?
It revives a Earth summon out of your grave. So I was thinking,
By breaking
like,
itself?
and by breaking itself. But if you have 3 other backups on the board and Scholar, and say your opponent's going to crash into you, one of your forwards, that otherwise would take you out, and you have a really good high blocker who's dulled on your board. Kind of obviously very specific situation, but you would tap 2, break the Scholar, grab say a Golem, for example, declare your blocker, tap your 1 CP, give your blocker 4k boost. There's some really clutch plays, and that's why Scholar kind of, I think, is really good, because of what he can bring in as kind of like combat tricks. Because you're getting those combat tricks back.
Well, don't forget that Minor brings backups back.
It brings backups back, yes.
Yeah, I know. So, like, if you have Minor played out in the late game, you can get that tech back. I'm just saying, like, my thought process is if you need to use Scholar, you're either using it defensively to save yourself from a big play that the opponent's going to make, or you're using it for the win condition.
Yeah.
I'm not used to playing 18 backups. It's a lot much for me, but
You do 16?
I play about anywhere from 14 to 16.
I mean, I could definitely agree with Scholar maybe as a one of.
What are you trying to put in right now?
Nothing. We're just trying to hone down. I started with 90. I'm trying to get it to 50.
Oh.
Everything is really good in this list. I'd say, if anything, if you absolutely have to, you would cut Ormi and Logos down to 2-ofs. You still see the tech.
That's the theme of your deck, though.
It is, but LeBlanc is the strongest part of that trio. Because even on her own, on curve 4-drop, has Natural Brave. So, and people are probably going to play around the break effect anyway. They want you to sack the minions as is. So, reducing that down to a 2 could work. Especially if we're trying to save the Dead Lumas in this list. Dead Luma is obviously a really strong card.
Right. But if you never see it,
that's probably going to be the only struggle. Ormi has more purpose in the deck than Logos, because Ormi is your Paul defense.
I think he wore me at a 3.
Hmm.
What does Logos do by himself?
He boosts Ormi and LeBlanc by 2k.
The theme of your deck, in my experience, should always be 3-ups.
And that's what I normally run, too. So that's why it's kind of like...
I wouldn't... I mean, is there anybody else?
We got the Psycom Enforcer. That's
your only monster tech?
That's the only monster
You're not
tech.
playing a 1-up.
Mm-hmm. Ingus is in there as a 2-of, but he's important for, obviously, what he's doing.
Yeah, I would not.
Gipple is in there. He's part of the category, but when I ran Gipple, I just never ended up using him.
There's your answer.
I mean, still need one more after that.
You're only playing one Gipple?
No. We're at 51 out of 50. So I need to cut one more after that.
Oh, you just cut everything we just talked about?
Yeah.
But you left Ormi, Logos, and...
I increased them back to 3.
Okay.
So we've got Guy in there because having a Natural Brave dude is nice and anti-ice. Kamari's in there for theme, technically.
Okay, let's move to summons.
Summons, Cockatrice at 3.
Yes.
Golem at 2.
Okay.
Hecaton Chair at 2. Other Hecaton Chair at 2. Titan at 2. That's tough, because all of them serve very important purposes.
Yeah.
Monsters, 2 of the Goblins, 2 of the Mishushus.
And
And then we're back to our backups.
you're sitting at how many backups? 16?
17 now. Like, the only one that's looking like it'd be okay to cut, or like remove down to 1 would be Tama. Because, like, you want Momodi out. And you want to see it a little more often than a one of. Because it's important to get that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's either
2, 3, 4, 5.
you don't really want to cut
6.
down any more forwards.
And
I'm leery on cutting down backup. I don't know. Like, 16 is like a sweet number.
I mean,
for
it would,
backups,
it
but
would put it at 16.
so you either cut the, in my opinion, you either cut the Tama or you go down to one of the Titans.
Could. It's an expensive card.
It's a very expensive card. The only time you ever want to see that is in your EX version.
Mm-hmm. Let's try that. Because I think he might have 2 Titans. He might have 1. And honestly, he doesn't have to follow this list exactly. He can toy around with it as he wants. So, I think that did it. I think that's it. And unfortunately, our Vanille didn't make it.
It's the same reason. Vanilla's like super expensive.
But it tutors in a 4-drop.
Yeah, but like Chris's play with that, like that makes sense. You pay for Vanilla, tutor into Yang, which then tutors into
Ursula. Yeah.
Like you're literally getting. And CP cost wise, Vanille was just free because you just played like 3 dudes.
Oh yeah. Yeah, totally. So yeah, I think that will be the list. And obviously he can tinker around with it as he wants and kind of go from there. So this dude named Positivity Bot.
Positivity Bot?
Positivity Bot. But it looks fit, no. But hey, if you are out there, thanks. So yeah, anyway, that's the list for today. I'll go and shoot this over. We'll see what he thinks of it, but it's kind of the deck building process on a more casual deck. Let's actually go ahead and submit this and look at our costs and see how we did. $24.
That's not bad.
That is not bad at all. That's great. And obviously if we had the wools in there, it would jump it up 35 per wool. Like, oof. He loved wool. He really liked wool.
Well,
but
yeah.
I told him immediately how expensive the card is. So, there's obviously a lot of Earth cards where it's like, if he gets it, try to fit it in. Your deck's going to evolve all the freaking time, because that's what mine did. I started with a build very similar to this, and evolved it into where mine is at now. So, anyway, that is that. I'm going to go ahead and send this over to him, and we'll go from there. But other than that, that is all I've got. Thank you so much for tuning in. Give me a follow if you want. I occasionally stream things, but that might be it for today due to other plans and stuff. So, but yeah, catch you guys next time. Bye.